In the frozen waste of Manchuria, hidden behind barbed wire and guarded gates, stood a facility that looked like any other military compound. But inside was something far darker. A place where men, women, even children were stripped of their names, their dignity, and their humanity. A place where doctors wore white coats not to heal, but to dissect the living. Where science was twisted into a weapon, and experiments meant to advance medicine became instruments of pure surgical horror.
I can hear you. You're breathing. Do you hear my breathing? I can smell you. You smell so good. You smell so good.
This was Unit 731, officially the Epidemic Prevention and Water Purification Department of Kwantung Army. Officially, it was a factory of death. Thousands entered, very few left. Behind its walls, diseases were bred, human bodies were broken, and secrets were buried so deep the world would not learn the full truth for decades. Tonight, we open the rusted gates of this hidden laboratory. We walk through its corridors. And we confront the shadows of the men who called themselves scientists, but became monsters. This is the story of Unit 731, Japan's secret horror lab. To understand the Unit 731, we must step back into the 1930s. Japan had invaded Manchuria in 1931, establishing a puppet state called Manchukuo. Behind the public image of order and progress, a darker agenda unfolded. The Japanese military was preparing for total domination of Asia, not just with guns, tanks, but with weapons no army could see coming, a biological warfare. The mastermind behind it all was a man named General Shiro Ashii, a brilliant but ambitious microbiologist. Ashii believed diseases could be turned into tools of mass destruction, and with the blessing of the military, he was given the resources to prove it. On the outskirts of Harbin, Manchuria, a massive compound rose up. Barbed wire fences, watchtowers, and high walls made sure no one could escape. Officially, it was called the Epidemic Prevention and Water Purification Department. Unofficially, locals called it something else, the Death Factory. Inside were rows of sterile laboratories, operating rooms, cold, damp prison cells, and giant brick furnaces that smoked day and night. The captives held inside were mostly Chinese civilians, men, women, and children, but also Russians, Koreans, and even a handful of Allied prisoners of war. None of them were told why they were there. None of them ever left alive. Prisoners were strapped to operating tables, no anesthesia, their organs cut open while still beating. Doctors wanted to see how diseases spread through a living body, not a corpse. Victims were cut apart, their organs removed, while their screams echoed down the sterile halls. The unit bred some of the deadliest pathogens known to mankind: plague, cholera, anthrax, smallpox. Prisoners were deliberately infected, some by injection, sometimes by food and water. Entire villages in Manchuria were bombed with plague-infested fleas. Within days, whole communities fell sick, and Unit 731 carefully recorded the results. Japan's soldiers needed to survive Siberian winters to test treatments. Captives were marched outside in freezing temperatures. Some had their arms plunged into ice water until their skin froze solid. Others were forced to hold out their limbs in the open air until frostbite turned flesh black. Doctors would then strike the frozen flesh with sticks, watching it shatter like glass. Unit 731 also became a proving ground for weapons. Prisoners were tied to wooden stakes while grenades were detonated nearby. Flamethrowers were unleashed on living bodies. Chemical gases choked captives in sealed chambers, and bombs were packed with bacteria and were dropped, not onto dummies, no, but on the living, men and women, so the army could record every wound, every burn, every death. Another series of experiments focused on sexually transmitted diseases. Male and female prisoners were deliberately infected with syphilis or gonorrhea to track how diseases spread. Assaults were forced on captives. Pregnant women were not spared. The babies often became unwilling subjects too. No part of human suffering was off limits. In 1945, as Japan faced defeat, Unit 731 began destroying its evidence. Prisoners were executed, buildings were blown up, records were burned, but the truth couldn't be erased. After the war, Unit 731's crimes came to light, and yet no justice ever came. Unlike the Nazi doctors tried at Nuremberg, General Ishii and his men avoided trial. The reason, you ask? The United States struck a secret deal. In exchange for their research data on biological warfare, the scientists of Unit 731 were granted immunity. Ishii retired in peace. Many of his staff went on to become doctors, professors, and businessmen in post-war Japan. Their victims, meanwhile, were forgotten about. Unit 731 remains one of the darkest chapters of World War II, and yet it is still less known than the horrors of Nazi Germany. Do you believe the men behind these crimes should have faced trial? What does justice look like when so much suffering went unanswered? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and if you found this video eye-opening, share it, because the story of Unit 731 must never be forgotten. Until next time, stay curious, stay cautious, and remember, history's darkest secrets still cast long shadows. If you liked our video, consider subscribing and showing some support. As always, thank you for tuning in for Crime Talk with Exploring with Ash and Jake. I hope everyone's having an amazing October.